shit just got real.
The quest for groove.
Welcome to the big Quest for Groove ultimate pad sensitivity and playability shootout. And as you might have guessed, this is a review about a lot of pad controllers, and I'm going to test them for how well the pads respond when you hit them. Basically, the ultimate test for which pad controller is the best thing to buy if you want to do some serious finger drumming like I do on this channel and like a lot of my users and my students over on Quest for Groove do. Just to be very clear, I'm only testing the pad sensitivity and playability of all these devices. I'm not going to get into software environments, beat making, looks, stuff like that. That's all not relevant. It's about sensitivity, playability. The devices I'm going to test are the Maschine Mark III, the big one, the Maschine Mikro Mark III, the small one, an Akai MPD218, a Presonus Atom, brand new device, an Akai MPD226 that I bought yesterday, a Lightpad block from Roli, and Akai MPC Live, actually a big standalone device, most expensive one of all these devices, an Akai MPC Touch, and just for fun, I'm also going to review this vintage Korg Pad Kontrol, a 10-year-old controller that I bought in 2008. All right, the way I'm going to test all these devices for playability and sensitivity is the most straightforward way possible, by playing a beat on all of them. So here are my findings. In terms of sensitivity, playability, regardless of price, the best device of all these devices is, in my opinion, the big Maschine Mark III. This one has the best pads, $600 device. This is just the best you can get. Some people might argue with that and say the Akai MPC Live is the best one. But I disagree. I think the Akai MPC Live has more or less the same sensitivity. I think it's a little less good than the Maschine Mark III. But I guess if you like Akai and if you like the feel of Akai pads, that's definitely going to be a motivator to buy the MPC Live instead of the Maschine Mark III. I would totally not argue with that. And if you buy an MPC Live, you're getting a great device. You're actually getting a standalone device that can be used without computers or software. So that's an extra plus. But you have to pay more than $1,000 for it. Over here is an Akai MPC Touch, and that's basically an MPC Live without the standalone mode. And it costs about the same as the big Maschine Mark III, around $600. But I don't recommend buying this at all, because I tested it out yesterday, and the problem is it's not a standalone device. You have to hook it up to MPC software for it to work. And when you do, and you want to play, for example, a software drum kit, like I do a lot with Addictive Drums, and you use the MPC software to route the MIDI data from the MPC Live into the software drum kit, you get this very, very strange latency jittery thing where sometimes there's a delay, sometimes there's no delay, and really, this is the only device that I played of all these devices where when I was playing it, it felt like my head was in a blender. So unfortunately, for the same price as a Maschine Mark III, it's obvious that you have to buy the big Maschine Mark III and not buy the Akai MPC Touch in terms of playability, sensitivity. Now that that's out of the way, we have a clear winner. We're also going to look at some of the more budget devices, right? Because not everybody has $600 to spend or $1,000 to spend. So in that range, we have a couple of machines. The cheapest one is the Akai MPD218, $99. After that, we have the Presonus Atom, $150. The Akai MPD226, also something like $150, maybe a little bit more, $170 or something. And then over here, we have the Lightpad block, $180, 180 euros, $200. And finally, the most expensive of the cheap devices is the Maschine Mikro Mark III. So here are my findings. I owned this MPD218 already for like 2 years ago. I bought this thing. It has been my main device for a very long time. I really like the way this thing plays, and that's the reason why I recommended this to a lot of people to buy as their main pad controller, because it's cheap and it's good. But unfortunately, what I found over the past year, also from like user comments and stuff, is that not all MPD218s are created equal. A lot of them are way less quality than this MPD218 that I have over here. And yesterday I bought the Akai MPD226 just as a comparison. So this is a brand new MPD device, the bigger brother of the Akai MPD218. And this actually has the option of setting the pad sensitivity. So it should technically be a little better than the MPD218. I did set the pad sensitivity to the most sensitive level, and I was kind of stunned by how bad it was. It was really like, this thing is so much better than this MPD226, this brand new MPD226 with the pad sensitivity set to the most sensitive level. And this kind of confirmed a suspicion that I had for quite a while. And that is that I think the quality of the Akai MPD line has actually deteriorated over the past few years. And this phenomenon is actually something that happened with the Korg Pad Kontrol as well, because this is a vintage Korg Pad Kontrol, 10 years old, and this thing plays like a dream. Pads are super sensitive, works really, really well. And I remember when this came out, the reason I bought it was because everybody was so happy about the pads and the sensitivity. And after a while, Korg started releasing the black Korg Pad Kontrol and discontinued the white Korg Pad Kontrol, basically without officially stating that the black pad control was a different device, but it definitely is, because if you buy a black Korg Pad Kontrol, I don't know, that sensitivity is just gone. And apparently that's something that can happen a lot with companies, and apparently that's what's happening to Akai right now, where they release something that's initially a very good product, but then somewhere down the production process something goes wrong, or something gets, made cheaper, and then all of a sudden you're left with something that looks the same or more or less the same, but it's not the same thing. And I think that's what happened to all the Akai MPD devices. So the conclusion I draw from that is that buying an Akai MPD pad controller at this time is more or less a treasure hunt. There might be some good ones. There probably are a lot of bad ones. And if you buy one, you're not guaranteed to get a good playable device. And that's why I think I'm going to drop my recommendation of getting an MPD218 as my main recommendation for a budget option. And I'm going to switch that recommendation to the Presonus Atom, because the Presonus Atom is a $150 device, so one of the cheaper devices. So if I would have to rank this Presonus Atom in terms of playability sensitivity, I would say it's not as good as a very good MPD218, but it's definitely better than most MPD218s, most MPD226s out there, which leaves you with a pretty decent controller. If you have not that much money to spend, I think right now this is your most reliable and the best option you can get right now. Doesn't mean it's the best option of the budget devices. Before we get there, I'm gonna real quickly talk about the Lightpad block by Roli. Yeah, long story short, I would not recommend this as your main finger drumming rig. It can do a lot of things besides finger drumming. You can even play games on this. So there might be a lot of reasons why you should still get a Lightpad block. But if you're a serious finger drummer like me, you want to kind of play the stuff that I play, it doesn't cut it. It's not enough. It's quite expensive. So don't get the Roli Lightpad block as your main finger drumming rig. And that leaves us with the most expensive of the budget devices, which is the Maschine Mikro Mark III for $250. Long story short, I think if you have $250 and you're looking for a reliable, good pad controller, you should get this one. This one is better than any of the other devices, any of the other budget devices. It's not as good as its big brother, but it comes pretty close. And if you have $250 to spend, this is the device that I recommend right now. It is consistent. The pads feel good. You can play basically anything that you would want to play. There's one thing that I noticed while testing this out for the second time, and is that there's some sort of a thing going on in the firmware here where the device tries to prevent accidental note triggering, like a pad that triggers when you're not hitting it. And sometimes that algorithm gets it wrong. So sometimes if you hit a certain combination of pads, especially, for example, 3, 8, and 12, if I'm playing a beat on 3, 8, and 12, pad number 8 will sometimes not trigger. But what I noticed is that this only happens if you hit the pad firmly, but really, really quickly lift your finger. So if you hit a pad like this, it's fine. But if you hit it like this, where you immediately remove your finger, apparently it gets confused and it thinks, oh, that was an accidental hit, and it doesn't trigger. What I noticed was when I realized this, I could immediately adapt my playing style, and immediately the problem was gone. So it's a minor issue. It might be the reason, you know, to buy a big Maschine Mark III, because that doesn't have that issue. But, you know, $250, $600, if you don't have the money, this is the best thing to get right now. So, quick summary of all the devices, the big Maschine Mark III is the best. Some people might prefer the Akai MPC Live, which is the most expensive, more than $1,000, but the pads are great. It has standalone mode, so it might be something to consider. Do not get the Akai MPC Touch. From the budget devices, you should probably get the Presonus Atom if you don't have that much to spend, or you could go on an adventure, go on a little treasure hunt and try and find a good Akai MPD218 or a good Akai MPD226, or maybe even get a second-hand Korg Pad Kontrol, a white second-hand Korg Pad Kontrol, but I don't want to recommend going on a treasure hunt. That's a bit weird. So the best budget device that you can get right now for some serious, sensitive and expressive finger drumming is the Maschine Mikro Mark III. It's not without flaws, but it's the best you can get right now for the money. So over here's a video on how to play jazz on a pad controller. Over here's a video on how to play reggae on a pad controller. I hope to see you again next week for another video. And until then, stay groovy. Bye-bye.